Bam! Let's energy and some audio. Welcome to Prop Noise. I'm Zoe FPV, and today we are talking about everything that mattered to me in drones. And that means a lot. I have not streamed in a couple weeks, so there's been a lot of news to talk about. And getting right into it, let's talk about, ding, the Google trend of drone racing. So here up on the screen, we have drone racing stacked up against go-karts and why do I care? So go-karts is at the top with red and why do I care at the bottom in yellow, and as you can see the little squiggly line in the middle is drone racing. Now this is not to say that the entire FPV community is in this little category. Actually FPV is much larger. If you compare this to FPV in general, it's a much smaller market. If you compare drone racing to the general drone market is stable. Drone racing, though, has seen this really hype curve spike where it goes up, down, up, down, up, down. And there's been this consistent line downward. And I've been waiting over the last 8 months to see that trend change and to see the industry finally level out and for it to finally creep up at a steady pace. There's many theories behind this, and I kind of wanted to talk about some of them. Chad Kapper, for example, has a really good take on this. Trappy has a really good take on this as well. A few really good industry players have really good opinions on this issue, and when I posed it to my Facebook friends, I had almost 500 replies within 24 hours. So this is a very hot topic issue for a lot of people, and I seem to have tapped into something that a lot of people have been thinking about for a very long time. So I'm trying to find Trappy's response here. Who cares about it becoming a spectator sport? At first, we need to start to be able to retain and attract new pilots. Companies way too focused on ripping off what sells than to push the industry forward. And this goes into a trend line that I see very specifically with drones. That's the fact that around Christmas time, people will get drones. You'll see this giant spike in interest, and then all of a sudden it dies down. And I think because of that, it's too hard to fly. You break it easily, so it's hard to repair. And 3, it's really hard to maintain the aircraft after you've broken it. So the barrier to get into drone racing and the barrier to get into it is very high. From the price point to the skill level needed to get into it is very high. Now, if you look at the DJI market, it's stable because it's actually pretty easy to get a DJI drone and keep it flying. Now, back in the Phantom Ones and back when they had the return to China issue, that was a little bit of a different story, but now they're so advanced and so locked in and precise that almost anyone can fly them. Like, I have handed my Mavic off to just about everyone I can possibly imagine, and I've got them flying instantly. I can't do that with one of my racing drones. And so this is one of the biggest barriers to entry for this market. So Sean Woodland had a lot of stuff to say, Chad Kapper. You have to look at additional perspectives. FPV freestyle is a new term. The community is just starting to get big enough to fragment, which is inevitable. Skate videos featuring empty pools is not how skating started, which is true. That is kind of what happened after skaters were kind of pushed aside and they had to go find new places to skate because they couldn't skate where they wanted to anymore, which is kind of what's happening right now in the drone community. It developed a decade or two after its inception. Remember that skating did not become big until a couple 20 years after it became a thing. So drone racing has just started. So we're at the very beginning, the very cusp, the very start of the industry. So to see that little trend, that could just be like kind of like Bitcoin, how you saw that little trend line, like, oh, it's nothing, and then blam, it has another spike, and then it dies off a little bit and keeps going back up. So again, this is why I like kind of following this trend line. It's really interesting, and a lot of people have a lot of interesting things to say about it. So if you want to read more about that, check out my Facebook page because the discussion is up on there. And a lot of cool industry people chimed in on it, and I appreciate everyone for saying what they said. Now, getting on to the real news. Bam! We're talking about a Mavic ripoff. So, CNET and a few other publications are talking about this all-new Mystic AI drone. Ooh, AI, ooh, buzz term, AI, ooh. What? So it looks a lot like a Mavic, but the two front motors are upside down. They clearly got inspired from the Mavic and what DJI has done. So this is a Kickstarter project or Indiegogo project, one of the two. Either way, it's essentially set up to do one big thing that other drones don't do. And that's essentially the safari mode, which basically means you put this drone up in the air, you map out the area that you want to fly, and then it just automatically flies around taking footage and video stuff that it thinks it's interesting. That's kind of cool. That actually is a really neat feature. The thing is, though, DJI and every other drone manufacturer can basically implement that feature with a software update. Does not make this drone unique. This actually makes this drone very inferior. If you look at the specs of this machine, it doesn't have remotely half the sensors that the DJI Mavic has. And it has a one-axis gimbal camera, meaning that the camera can only go like up and down. And so when you move the drone, the whole image moves with it. So unlike a stabilized camera that the DJI Mavic has or the Spark, this does not have that. And so that's really kind of a big an issue. And the thing that really kind of grinds my gears is the fact that a lot of the tech reviewers out there, they're focusing on, oh, hey, look what it can do. But they're not focusing on the fact that it's an inferior product priced into a market where the DJI Spark is far superior. And I argue that DJI could add this feature before this product hits the market. Everything is in their groundwork for DJI to do this. They already have tracking, obstacle tracking. They already have obstacle avoidance. They could literally add this feature into the DJI line of products before this even comes to the market. So yeah, just kind of wanted to talk about this. Please, guys, do not spend your money on this. This is another Kickstarter fail ready to happen. It is only $500, but not worth it. And going on to what might be potentially another Kickstarter fail, but not really. This is the Hunter drone. It's the 6th generation advanced strike craft coming out from Russia. We're going to be talking about a lot of industrial-sized drones in this episode, so strap in, people. Russia's preparing a new unmanned combat aircraft set to fly later this year with the 20-ton, 40,000 pounds. That's big. If you look at it, that's a little guy right there. That's a very big aircraft. This thing is basically like a stealth bomber without a cockpit and without anyone in it. Which, by the way, the US military and Boeing and Lockheed have something that looks a lot like this. So, it's a clone. Russia cloning the market. But yeah, so development began in 2011. This is why, I've heard about this machine before, but they're finally saying that it's getting close to completion. I'm eager to see some flight footage of this thing flying. I know in the drone community, I don't believe it till I sees it. So come on, Russia, let's see what this thing can do. Give us the demo. Show it off. Let's see it. And the same thing, hey everybody, China, let's clone the US Reaper. So weirdly enough, if you want to build your own Reaper, the data has been leaked onto the internet. And I kind of joke because this actual aircraft started out as the RC aircraft in a model, and they scaled it up to be what it is today. And realistically, there's nothing too niche or spectacular on this machine besides the hardware it carries. So realistically, I highly doubt that the specs and the details that they gained about this machine are really going to tell them much about the capabilities of what it can do. But I find it really interesting that this kind of data has been leaked on the internet. And if you really wanted to, you could probably track down how to build your own. I will not be doing a series on how to build your own Reaper drone, people. But hey, Bruce, he might be game. Hey, Bruce, RC Mall reviews. Here you go, dude. You built a missile once. How about you build a Reaper drone? Moving on. This is really cool. So, Tactical Robotics has created this all new rescue design. So going into where I love drones, where they can do good things and help people, this is a purely defensive capability setup. So it's built primarily to get 1 to 2 soldiers off the battlefield as quickly as possible. And it can land in hard to get to environments. It's basically like a hovercraft on its own, 2 ducted fans, or 2 ducted ducts. And yeah, this is actually not the first time I've seen this vehicle, but this is the first time I've seen it being operationally capable, meaning that's actually working and they're able to do a demo with it. So it's no longer just an idea. This thing exists, it works today, and it can be implemented on the battlefield tomorrow. So it's pretty cool. And the whole thing is FPV. This is an FPV setup, so it's flown completely remote controlled, much like our setups are today, but with a much nicer command center. Moving on. So this is going in the Thai cave rescue. I'm sure a lot of people have heard a lot about this. What does it have to do with drones? Well, a journalist got a little frisky and sent up their drone up over the area that they weren't supposed to. So most of the journalists were kept a few miles or quite a distance away from the actual site so they could have rescue teams and other crew get to the area easily. This one journalist is like, well, I have a drone. So he sent it up and flew it into the area, and, well, he was detained. So not only were they able to find out who he was and track it back to him, they detained the guy, and yeah. I don't know if he actually broke any laws in that country. I just know that they detained him and stopped him from flying because it was keeping a rescue helicopter from operating in the area. So yeah, even journalists ruining the hobby. Now, this is the cool one. So South Korea Telecom launches Airship drone platform. So think about this. There's like a hurricane hits. One of the biggest storms in Japan is about to hit right now. And the telecoms go out. Everything goes out. How do you get a network back up instantly? Well, they have a solution for that, and this is called the dubbed Skyship. The platform includes a helium-powered airship drone, mobile ground station, as well as installed smaller drones and robots. That's right, it is a mothership. It has drones that pop out of it to do more work. This is something that I actually proposed not long ago to the Civil Air Force Patrol on how to do a drone rescue setup. You have a mothership that looks over the area, much bigger, and then you have smaller rescue drones that can go down and possibly go through rubble and wreckage to find people. This is really neat. They're talking about integrating land and air drones with the mothership, on top of having the ability a ground station that talks back to a main control center. So this is essentially able to roll out a couple of trucks and have an entire network back up in the air instantly, with the ability to find people. So, for example, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and the cell network goes down, well, guess what? Your cell phone is a beacon. It's sending out a signal. They can pick up on that signal and figure out where you are automatically. They can figure out where the people are that need to be rescued and send robots there to confirm there's someone there, and then send a rescue team out to that person. So for disaster relief and disaster rescue, this kind of system is going to become invaluable in the future. So yeah, I'm excited for this. This is some really cool stuff. You should check out the link for this. I'll have links to all this stuff down in the description and in the comments below very soon. Going on to even cooler stuff. Hey, let's go to Mars and get your butt to the moon. Or something, I don't know. But the thing with the moon, we don't have atmosphere. But on Mars, there is an atmosphere. However thin, there is still an atmosphere. And so NASA has proposed and will be sending a drone to Mars. And there's something really cool with this drone. The blades have been specifically designed to work just on Mars. They spin at a much higher rate than they would be able to on Earth, and they are designed to operate in a much less, in like 1/10 atmosphere. So they spin super fast to be able to get even half the kind of lift that we get here on Earth. That being said, there's not the same kind of gravity on Mars, but there still is a lot of gravity that has to be overcome for this machine to work. It's really cool. I've been following this project for a while, back when it was just a concept that people were talking about and that people wanted to do. So now it's actually happening. It's one of those things that's actually happening. Drones, they're going somewhere, baby. They're going to Mars. So, we also have to stop the killer drones before they kill us. So we're going to go on to a little bit of darker news. There's some stuff that we have to talk about within the news because some stuff has been happening. There has been a new system proposed by the Pentagon to combat drones. So this is basically a system that tracks drones in the sky and overwhelms them with radio waves to take them down. It's really cool, and it's also really, really cheap to do. So it costs about $1 per use, doesn't take a lot of power, and the system itself, once built, could just be installed in a location and continuously ran. So people worried about higher security areas that need to combat potential drones entering that area, aka the White House, that is what the system will be used for. Yes. So yeah, they don't want to spend $38,000 to take out a $900 drone. That's really the biggest issue. There's no good way to destroy a drone. There's no good way to take it out, and this is one of those ways to do that. And obviously, this kind of machinery would have to be the military and/or government use, because to jam the airwaves, as the way it does, is highly illegal, and the FCC will come after you for jamming stuff. I know friends that have, or at least a friend that has had that issue before. He did something stupid, jammed the airwaves, and the FCC showed up to fine him. So again, this kind of equipment only for military use right now. On the upper note, Naperville dedicates a park for new drone flyers to practice their skills. So this is kind of going back to where flying airplanes and RCs have been for a while. They've had their own dedicated places for people to fly. And this location is now dedicated for drone use. And more, I'm seeing this dedicated parks for people to fly in and to fly drones, because if we don't have a dedicated place to fly, then we're going to start flying everywhere, and not everyone wants us to fly everywhere. Now, this is great. This on the first note, it's great. This is awesome that we have this, but it's a big empty field. There's not a lot of awesome stuff there to fly around. It's got a few trees, but it's not a flying paradise. And I fear that once we start having these drone parks, it'll be shut down so hard in the future that we cannot fly in other locations. And so the freedom that we've had to fly in locations that we've flown in the past will simply evaporate. Yeah, but in the meantime, it's really cool that you can get in there and fly at a local RC model park. Down in San Diego, when I visited, there was a local RC model park that had a full-time racing course set up on it, which was really cool. And one of the reasons why I think that we kind of need this thing. We kind of need to have dedicated spaces just for drone flying. Not just regular RC model aircraft, because that community is very ingrained in what they do. And what we're doing with FPV is very different than the traditional line-of-sight flying that has been the norm for many years. So we need much more of a skate park versus an open field. And that's something that the cities are really going to have to understand, is that what we need as pilots is this and not that. And if you have that, does not equal this. There's a lot of times when you'll contact the city for a flying field, and they'll be like, well, there's an RC model field there. You can just go find an empty parking lot. That's not what we want. That's not how we hone our skills. So yeah, I'm hoping that as we go forward over the next few years and as regulations change, we'll have more places that we can dedicatedly fly at and not have to worry about ruining the hobby, so to speak. And talking about ruining the hobby, these people are going to ruin the hobby. And I mean that. House Subcommittee UAA stakeholders to discuss counter-drone issues. So a bunch of Washington moguls and a person from a subcommittee, Angela Stubblefield, Stephen Mucklow, David Silver, Lisa Ellman, and Douglas Johnson. If you have the time to contact them and to let them know about what you think about Hobbyist and the use of the airspace, please take the time to send them a nice message. And I mean actually a nice message. Don't berate these people. They're just, I fear that they're trying to do the best they can, and they have an agenda. And as hobbyists, we need to make sure that our agenda is presented and heard. So they're going to be live streaming this event at 10 a.m. tomorrow in Washington, D.C. And they'll be talking about this with a roundtable chaired by U.S. Representative Frank Lubino, a Republican from New Jersey. That should be interesting. Most of these people, like the David Silver, Vice President of the Civil Aviation Aerospace Industries Association. We have Lisa Ellman, Co-Executive Director of the Commercial Drone Alliance. And Douglas Johnson, Vice President for Technology Policy at the Consumer Technologies Association. Angela Stubblefield, Deputy Associate Administrator for Security and Hazardous Materials Safety at the Federal Aviation Administration. I'm not 100% sure what that has to do with hobbyist drones, but okay. And then Stephen Mucklow, Special Assistant to the Deputy Assistant, Assistant to the Assistant to the Secretary of Defense for Homeland Defense Interrogation and Defense Support of Civil Authorities of the U.S. Department of Defense. Holy shit, that is a title. That is a real title. That is a long, long title. How do you put that on a business card? Do you just like have it start on one side and then you turn the card over and it ends on that side? Wow, Stephen Mucklow. I guess the more words you have, it's a lot of words to say he's an assistant to an assistant to an assistant to a secretary. Okay, so I'm not saying he's going to know a lot about what we're doing as hobbyists. And you have to realize that this whole committee that's being put together is basically the Commercial Drone Alliance, which is trying to put in new rules and regulations for hobbyists so we are basically regulated away. They want to have open airways for their drones to be able to deliver into neighborhoods, into airspace that currently a lot of hobbyists are using. And going back to that park thing, if these people have their way, we will be delegated to parks and we will not be able to fly freely anymore. So yeah, you really should start looking into this issue if you haven't. I talked about this briefly in a prop noise previously, and as with a lot of laws and challenges, this one's continuing on. Even though we won the first battle with having the hobbyist rules kind of upheld, they're still chipping away at that. So yeah, if you want to watch and hear what they have to say, tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m., which I'm assuming is Eastern time, and I will actually be live streaming it tomorrow morning. So if you want to watch that with me and hear my commentary on what they have to say, tune in for that. It should be fun. Yeah, and moving on. It will be right here. I'll have a link to that live stream in the description below. And yeah. So this is, again, going in kind of that news. There's a path and a format to all of this. FAA's restrictions on drones withstand a hobbyist legal challenge. So the U.S. government's ability to police hobbyist drones use was upheld by the appellate court. There's a word I've never said before. Friday in a ruling that helps set the stage for a series of new restrictions and requirements that aviation regulators hope to enact soon. Yeah. Chills, dude. This is not good. So the guy that took this is the hobbyist that took the FAA to court that said, hold on, bro, you don't get to police me. I'm not going to take that $5 registration. Take it back and I want my money. And for a brief time, he got the FAA's registration repealed. And for a brief time, the FAA was supposed to give you your $5 back. And then Congress was like, nope, we're going to reenact that. So they reinstated the whole registration process. And so then he took the FAA to court and said, hey, no. Still owed me my $5. For that point in time, that period in time, I was still owed $5. And so he started to fight for a bunch of people's $5 registration fees. And the court is basically saying, nah, FAA had a leg to stand on, sorry guy. Because the rules within the agency's statutory authority and is neither arbitrary nor capricious, God damn, I can't speak. The petition for review is denied. Wrote George Merrick. So yeah, this is pretty much another blow for the hobbyist rights. And this was a sense where a hobbyist used his own power to help fight for the community. So yeah, thanks John for fighting the good fight. Hopefully it's not over for you, and hopefully you can still fight this fight, because it's a good fight. And I think we're going to have to all of us are going to have to get involved in it to keep the skies open. Because again, guys, we don't want to be regulated to a little park. We want to be able to fly where we want to. And speaking on that, if we had those laws in place that they wanted to repeal, guys like Maynard Hill, who died at age 85 and who flew a record-breaking 1,882 miles across the Atlantic on less than a gallon of fuel, people like him would be restricted on what he could do. And a lot of hobbyists out there really have, and this even goes back to the Reaper drone, a lot of hobbyists have helped push the aviation industry forward. And it's really appalling to create rules and regulations that restrict hobbyists from doing that when hobbyists have been doing it safely, relatively, without major incident for many years. We still have yet to have a major incident with a full-scale aircraft. So to enact new laws and regulations when that hasn't happened is really kind of asinine. And you really have to wonder, why take away your civil liberties when there's no benefit? If I would say, if drones were hitting planes every other week or even every year, and a plane was literally, falling out of the sky from it, I'd be like, okay, yeah, let's regulate them all away. It's unsafe. But there has been no major issues. And so hobbyists like this have dedicated their life to it. People like that will be hindered in the future from doing great things. And we can't hinder those people. We have to support them. So again, speak to your local representative about what you can do and what they can do to open the skies up for drones. I mean, we all have to be spokespersons in this hobby. Whether you like it or not, you have to be right now. Okay, moving on to some more positive news, and more news about me and what's going on with me. So I have not posted a lot of content lately. I went to the ER like 4 times in about a week, and my health has been not the best, but I have not given up. If you want to check out some cool stuff, I did a thing with Rotor Riot. We recreated Rocket League with drones, which was really, really cool. I don't know if you know, but I'm a big gamer, and I love Rocket League. Like, it is one of my favorite games, and I really love drones. Combining those two things, and on top of that, we combined it in a way where if you wanted to, you could start up your own weekend Rocket League or Rocket Whoop League. Rocket Whoop League. Yes, Rocket Whoop League. Why didn't we not call it that? Rocket Whoop League. I mean, realistically, there's stock whoops. You can play with stock whoops. You just get a pool table, a little empty ball. We got these really lightweight plastic ones that were really easy to hit and allowed the drone to kind of knock them around and fly with them. Yeah, it's really kind of neat, and it was really fun, and it was inspired by what kind of games could we create with a tiny loop at the house that we were staying at. And the original concept was to create the Olympics of tiny loops, where we had a bunch of different little Olympic games. And then eventually we're like, hey, we could recreate Rocket League with a loop. And we're like, that's way more fun. So we ended up just recreating Rocket League with a whoop. We could still do the Olympics of whoops, and I still kind of think that's a cool idea. But this was a lot of fun. Like, it was a lot of fun. And it played a lot like Rocket League. Like, I ended up scoring on my own goal, just like I do in Rocket League. And I had a lot of fun. It works. If you have a referee that can flip over the drones when they get caught, it works really well. Obviously, it might work a little bit better with the Hoovers, but nah, this is cool. You can use stock whoops to play Rocket League. This is all about what you can do with stock products and not having to use a bunch of different stuff. Or a bunch of different setup. Like, I'm actually really planning on doing a Rocket Whoop League weekly or bi-weekly here in Santa Cruz just because of how fun it was. And moving on to more news about me. We have XClass Race 2, Race 3 at the track. I took second place. Woohoo! Even after all my medical issues, I was able to rest up and bear through it and put some points on the board. So taking second place in this last race puts me, I believe, tied for third in the standings for the season. So I'm inching up in the rankings, finally. And I'm looking forward to putting on a good show for the rest of the season. If you haven't checked it out yet, check out xclass.racing. I wish the thing would load properly so you can actually see some footage. But hey, it's a website. It's loading. And nothing. But yeah, so it was a really cool race. Again, this happened at the track, and this was the second track race that we had here in California. And I've got to say, I think there's a spark of something. I think if we make this an endurance race, and we have a battery sponsor or battery sponsors that allow us to swap out batteries routinely, and we make it more about endurance and doing more laps versus doing 5 laps and landing, and we have a pit crew to swap out batteries for each flight, I think it could be really, really fun. Right now, the biggest issue with the track races is still they're too short. Like, it's a really grand spectacle, and it's really fun to watch, and the audience loves it, but it's too short, and it's something that needs to be extended. But I've flown in formats where mini quads have been up in the air and racing for 45 minutes at a time, with no stopping. Single race, 45 minutes. I think the same kind of thing could happen with this, and I honestly think that with the right kind of planning, we could take this to the next level pretty quickly. So yeah, I'm really excited for where XClass is going, and at least I'm trying to be. I've more or less kind of been hands off of XClass the last few months, and I've been outside of their meetings, and I have not been privy to what they're doing. So it's kind of like my baby is going off on their own and doing their own kind of thing while I'm competing in it. So yeah, yeah, check out xclass.racing for that. And then finally, this is a lot of stuff. I will be on the UFDA shit show. Bam! Oh wait, it's over here. So if this is an NSFW, Not Safe for Work podcast, I just have to put that out there first and foremost, where we get silly with it and we have fun and we just let ourselves go and relax. I mean, it is very small, but I kind of appear on this show weekly. I have my own little chime-ins and I make little funny jokes. So if you have not checked out the UFDA shit show, you should check that out on Old Gravy Lake's channel. He's a really good friend of mine and I love the dude to death. So go check that out right now. Like, literally, go check it out right now. Go type in Old Gravy Lake FPV into the search bar, subscribe to the channel, and then after this live stream is done, I'll be on that live stream hanging out with them. Me over here. Yeah, that live stream right there. Yep. No. Right there, yep. Cool, so that's it for prop noise. Thank you all for watching. I've been Zoe FPV, and you have been amazing. I will be back next week with another one. And stay tuned later this week for a flight video being posted to my channel. Until next time.